Imagine dedicating years to building a future with the one you love, only to awaken one morning to find your joint savings account drained of $75,000, the entirety of your hard-earned house fund. The person you trusted most, your wife, has vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void filled with betrayal and confusion. As you delve into the mystery, you uncover a web of deceit involving her sister, leading to revelations that will shatter your understanding of trust and loyalty. This is the harrowing tale of Rajesh and Priya, a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, questioning the very fabric of relationships. Rajesh and Priya were a couple who embodied the ideals of partnership and shared dreams. Both came from humble beginnings, working tirelessly to build a life of stability and comfort. Rajesh, an IT consultant with an eye for detail, was the planner. Priya, an art teacher known for her warm smile and optimistic outlook, brought a creative and emotional touch to their partnership. From the moment they married, their dream was clear: to own a house they could call home. Every decision they made was guided by this goal. Vacations were modest, dinners out were rare, and even Priya's birthday gifts were thoughtful but frugal. Every spare rupee went into their savings account. Over 8 years, they had amassed $75,000, enough for the down payment on a beautiful home in their growing city. Their relationship was built on trust. Rajesh handled the finances meticulously, and Priya often told friends how lucky she was to have a husband who cared so much about their future. Together, they visited open houses on weekends, walking through sunlit living rooms and imagining where they would place their furniture. It was their ritual, their bond. But as perfect as it seemed on the outside, cracks were beginning to form, small and almost imperceptible, like fissures in a wall that only reveal themselves when it's too late. The fault line of their relationship had a name: Lavina. Priya's younger sister was a force of chaos, a whirlwind of drama and financial recklessness. Where Priya was thoughtful and grounded, Lavina was impulsive and irresponsible. She had a knack for making bad decisions, quitting jobs on a whim, getting into relationships with questionable men, and borrowing money she could never repay. For years, Priya had acted as Lavina's safety net, often at Rajesh's expense. He had bailed Lavina out on more than one occasion, paying off her credit card here, covering her rent there, but he had always done so reluctantly. Rajesh saw Lavina for what she was, a manipulative and self-centered woman who used her sister's kindness as a crutch. Priya, however, refused to see it. She saw Lavina as her responsibility, the little sister she had practically raised after their parents passed away. "She's family, Rajesh," Priya would say whenever he voiced his frustration. "What do you expect me to do, abandon her?" "I expect you to set boundaries," Rajesh would reply, his tone weary but firm. "She'll never stand on her own if you keep cleaning up her messes." Priya always defended Lavina, brushing off Rajesh's warnings as overly critical or unkind. It was a source of tension between them, but Rajesh loved Priya enough to let it go, most of the time. In the months leading up to the betrayal, the signs were there, but Rajesh didn't see them for what they were. Priya had grown more secretive about their finances, brushing off his questions about minor discrepancies in their joint account. Lavina had been around more often, showing up unannounced and staying late into the night. Rajesh noticed whispered conversations between the sisters and the occasional look of guilt on Priya's face when she thought he wasn't watching. Then came the incident with the loan. Rajesh discovered that Priya had co-signed a $10,000 loan for Lavina without telling him. When he confronted her, she dismissed it as no big deal. "She needed help, Rajesh," Priya said, her voice defensive. "It's not like I handed her the money. She'll pay it back." Rajesh was furious. But he let it go after Priya promised to never make such a decision without consulting him again. Looking back, he would realize that this was the moment he should have seen the truth, but love has a way of blinding us to what we don't want to see. The final straw came just weeks before Priya disappeared. Lavina had shown up at their apartment in tears, claiming she was about to lose her car due to missed payments. Rajesh refused to help, standing firm for the first time in years. Priya, however, couldn't bear to see her sister in distress. That night, Rajesh overheard them arguing in the kitchen. "She's my husband, Lavina," Priya whispered, her voice shaking. "I can't keep doing this. He'll leave me if I don't stop." "Won't leave," Lavina replied, her tone icy. "Rajesh loves you too much. He'll forgive you, just like always." Those words would haunt Rajesh later, when he replayed them in his mind and realized what they truly meant. By the time Priya emptied their account and vanished, the foundation of their relationship had already been eroded. But for Rajesh, the betrayal felt sudden and catastrophic. He had trusted Priya implicitly, never imagining she was capable of such a deception. As he sat alone in their empty apartment, staring at the bank statement that confirmed his worst fears, a single question consumed him. Why? But the answers he would uncover would be far more devastating than he could have ever imagined. It was an ordinary Wednesday morning when Rajesh sat down at his desk to review their finances, a routine he'd kept up since they started saving for their house. He logged into their joint savings account, expecting to see the reassuring balance of $75,000, the fruit of their years of sacrifice and careful planning. But what greeted him instead was a number so small it might as well have been a joke. $0. At first, he thought it was a glitch. He refreshed the page, rubbed his eyes, and even logged out and back in, but the number didn't change. His heart began to race, his palms slick with sweat. Disbelief gave way to panic as he scrolled through the transaction history. There it was, a single transfer of $75,000 to an unfamiliar account, processed just the day before. His mind raced, desperately searching for a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Priya had moved the money to a new account without telling him. It wouldn't be the first time she'd made a financial decision on her own. But as he dialed her number, the panic in his chest tightened into something colder, something closer to fear. The call rang and rang, but Priya didn't answer. He tried again, then again. Nothing. Rising from his chair, Rajesh paced the room, running his hands through his hair. That's when he noticed something strange. Her shoes were missing from the rack by the door, along with her favorite handbag and the suitcase they usually used for weekend trips. He rushed to the bedroom, flinging open the closet. Her side was half empty. A sickening realization washed over him. Priya hadn't just moved the money, she'd left. On the kitchen counter he found it, a single note, hastily written on the back of a grocery list. "I'm sorry, Rajesh, I had no other choice. Please, don't try to find me." The words blurred as his vision clouded with rage and confusion. No other choice? What the hell did that mean? He slammed the note down, his hands trembling. Anger surged through him, mixing with the hurt and betrayal. The woman he'd trusted, the woman he'd built a life with, had not only stolen their savings, but had also walked out on him without so much as a proper explanation. In the days that followed, Rajesh became a man possessed. He refused to believe that Priya's disappearance was without reason. There had to be more to the story. And as he started to piece together the puzzle, one name kept surfacing: Lavina. Rajesh began by revealing the bank transaction. The account Priya had transferred the money to wasn't hers, nor was it one they'd ever used before. After some digging, he found a connection. It belonged to a financial institution known for handling high-risk personal loans, one Lavina had been associated with in the past. It clicked like a thunderbolt. Priya hadn't taken the money for herself. She'd given it to Lavina. He was furious, but it was also strangely relieving, if only for a moment. If Lavina was involved, there was a chance Priya hadn't acted alone. A dark thought crept into his mind. What if they planned this together? Determined to uncover the truth, Rajesh began reaching out to Lavina. She ignored his calls and texts, but he wasn't about to give up. He contacted mutual friends, subtly prying for information. That's when he heard something that stopped him cold. Lavina had recently been spotted driving a brand new luxury car, a far cry from the beat-up sedan she used to complain about. Lavina doesn't even have a job, a friend remarked offhandedly. It's weird, right? Where did she get the money for that? Rajesh's suspicions deepened. He revisited every interaction he'd had with Lavina over the past few months, every argument with Priya about helping her sister. He recalled the hushed conversations, the guilty looks, and that night in the kitchen when Priya had whispered, "I can't keep doing this. He'll leave me if I don't stop." Had Priya been lying to him this whole time? Had she and Lavina concocted this plan together, stringing him along while they plotted behind his back? As Rajesh dug deeper, more unsettling details began to emerge. He discovered that Priya had been making small withdrawals from their savings account for months, amounts too insignificant to notice at the time, but that now added up to a startling $10,000. She'd funneled the money to Lavina in increments, likely to avoid raising suspicion. He also found out that Lavina had been bragging to her friends about a big score coming her way. Though she never named Priya outright, the timing was too coincidental to ignore. Rajesh's fury grew with each revelation, his heartbreak compounded by a sense of humiliation. He had been played, not just by Lavina, but by the woman he thought he could trust above all others. Rajesh hired a private investigator, hoping for answers. Within days, the investigator confirmed what he had feared. Priya had been seen in a neighboring city, staying at a luxury hotel Lavina had booked under her name. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal. Priya had chosen her sister over him, abandoning their dreams for reasons he still couldn't fully understand. The more Rajesh learned, the more questions arose. Was Priya coerced into this? Or had she been a willing participant in Lavina's schemes? And if she was willing, why? What could have driven her to betray not just their marriage, but the very foundation of their life together? As Rajesh sat alone in their once-homed apartment, staring at the empty spaces where Priya's belongings had been, he resolved to get to the bottom of it all. But the deeper he dug, the more he realized. This wasn't just about stolen money. This was about uncovering the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The days following Priya's disappearance stretched into an agonizing blur for Rajesh. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by restless pacing, and hours spent staring at his phone, waiting for a call or message that never came. He reached out to every mutual contact they had, starting with Priya's close friends. Most were as shocked as he was, and "I can't believe she would do this," one friend said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "She always talked about how much she loved you and how excited she was about the house." Rajesh clung to these reassurances, but they only deepened the mystery. How could someone who professed so much love betray him so completely? Calls to Priya's family yielded little. Her brother claimed ignorance, and her aunt, who had always adored Priya, seemed genuinely bewildered. "I don't know where she could have gone," the aunt said, "but Lavina was here just last week, asking for money again. She's always been trouble." Rajesh's frustration mounted. Every road seemed to lead back to Lavina, but she was nowhere to be found. When Rajesh visited her apartment, he found it abandoned, her furniture gone, mail piling up by the door. It was as if she'd vanished into thin air, taking Priya with her. Desperation pushed Rajesh to hire a private investigator. "Find her," he said. sliding a photograph of Priya across the desk. "Whatever it takes, I need to know why she did this." The investigator, a seasoned professional named Arun Mehta, wasted no time. Within days, Arun uncovered a series of troubling financial patterns. Priya had been withdrawing small amounts from their savings for nearly a year, but those weren't the only discrepancies. There were also purchases that didn't align with her usual habits. A diamond bracelet from an upscale jeweler, frequent payments to a luxury spa, and a high-end designer handbag. "These aren't things Priya would buy for herself," Rajesh said, frowning at the evidence laid out before him. "She's never been materialistic." "They aren't for her," Arun replied. "The receipts were delivered to an address linked to Lavina." Rajesh's heart sank. Everyone on the panel looked up at Rajesh's heart. The sister who had been a thorn in their marriage was now at the center of its unraveling. But the investigator wasn't finished. He uncovered another troubling piece of the puzzle. Lavina had been associating with a known scam artist, a man who had been implicated in multiple fraud cases involving unsuspecting women. "Rumor has it," Arun said, leaning back in his chair, "this guy uses women to gain access to their finances. Lavina's been seen with him at several events." Rajesh's blood ran cold. Could Priya have been manipulated into this? Or worse, had she willingly involved herself in something illegal? The possibility of Priya being complicit felt like a dagger to the heart, but the alternative, a naive victim swept up in Lavina's schemes, offered little solace. The final clue came in the form of a photograph. Arun handed it to Rajesh with a grave expression. It showed Priya and Lavina at a hotel bar, laughing with the man in question. Priya's hand rested on her sister's arm, her expression one of ease. It didn't look like someone who was being coerced. It looked like someone who was a willing participant. Rajesh was a man unraveling. The woman he thought he knew, the woman he had built a life with, was now a stranger in his mind. Questions plagued him day and night. Was our entire marriage a lie? Did she ever love me? Was this all a plan from the start? Everywhere he turned, he was haunted by reminders of their life together. The framed photo on the mantle, taken on their anniversary in Goa, mocked him with its depiction of a happy couple. The calendar on the wall, with dates circled for house tours, was a cruel joke. Even the apartment itself felt like an empty shell, devoid of the warmth Priya had once brought to it. Sleep eluded him. When he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Not the loving wife he remembered, but the Priya from the photograph, laughing alongside Lavina and the conman. His nights were spent piecing together every interaction they'd shared, looking for signs he had missed. His days were consumed by a growing obsession with finding answers. But the search for truth came at a cost. Rajesh's work suffered as he began missing deadlines and showing up late to meetings. His friends grew concerned, urging him to move on. "You can't let this destroy you," one of them said over a late-night call. "She made her choice. You need to start thinking about yourself." But how could he move on without closure? How could he rebuild his life when every piece of evidence pointed to a conspiracy he was only beginning to understand? The toll wasn't just emotional, it was physical. Rajesh lost weight, his once meticulously groomed appearance giving way to an unkempt look that mirrored the chaos inside him. The man who had prided himself on control and precision was now at the mercy of a betrayal that defied logic. Yet beneath the pain and doubt, a new emotion began to take root: determination. If Priya and Lavina thought they could take everything from him and walk away unscathed, they were sorely mistaken. Rajesh didn't just want answers. He wanted justice. And as Arun continued his investigation, Rajesh resolved to face whatever truth lay ahead, no matter how devastating it might be. This wasn't just about recovering the money. It was about reclaiming his life and holding the people who had betrayed him accountable. Rajesh's heartbreak had now transformed into a fierce resolve to make Priya and Lavina face the consequences of their actions. The $75,000 wasn't just money. It was a symbol of the life he'd planned, the trust he'd placed in his wife, and the years of sacrifice they had both made. He wasn't going to let it all vanish without a fight. The first step was to gather evidence. Working closely with Arun, the private investigator, Rajesh compiled a detailed record of Priya's financial activity. Bank statements showed a clear pattern of withdrawals and transfers leading to Lavina's account. Arun had also uncovered text messages between the sisters, recovered through Priya's old phone number. The messages revealed that Lavina had convinced Priya to move the money under the guise of helping her escape an abusive creditor. "It's only temporary," one message read. "Once I'm out of this mess, I'll give it all back. You're the only one I can count on, Priya." But as more messages surfaced, it became clear that Lavina had no intention of returning the money. She had used emotional manipulation to guilt Priya into risking everything. Worse still, Priya had been aware of Lavina's intentions, but had convinced herself it was a necessary evil. Rajesh also collected witness statements. Priya's aunt confirmed that Lavina had been bragging about coming into money, and a former friend of Lavina's provided key testimony about her lavish spending spree, which included designer handbags, spa trips, and even a deposit on a luxury apartment. Armed with this evidence, Rajesh contacted a lawyer. The legal process was daunting, fraught with emotional turmoil as every detail of Priya's betrayal was laid bare. But Rajesh knew it was his best chance at reclaiming his stolen money. The lawyer filed a civil lawsuit against Priya and Lavina for theft and breach of trust. "It's not just about the money," Rajesh told his lawyer during one meeting. "It's about making sure they don't do this to anyone else." The day of reckoning came at a family gathering arranged by Priya's aunt. While the legal proceedings were underway, Rajesh had insisted on confronting Priya and Lavina face to face. With the lawyer's advice, he carefully planned the confrontation to ensure it would not jeopardize his case. The gathering was supposed to be a birthday celebration for Priya's cousin, but tension filled the air as soon as Rajesh walked in. Priya was there, sitting quietly in a corner, her once radiant demeanor replaced by a nervous, haunted look. Lavina, however, carried herself with her usual arrogance, laughing loudly and pretending as if nothing had happened. Rajesh waited until most of the family was present before making his move. He stood in the center of the room, holding a folder containing the evidence he had painstakingly gathered. His voice was calm but firm as he addressed everyone. "I'm sorry to interrupt the celebration," he began, his eyes scanning the room, "but there's something I need to say, something everyone here deserves to know." The room fell silent. Priya's face turned pale, and Lavina froze mid-laugh. "Yes. Priya and I worked tirelessly to save for a house. We had $75,000 saved up. Our future, our dream. But that dream was stolen from me, not by a stranger, but by the two people I trusted most." Gasps echoed around the room. Priya lowered her head, tears streaming down her face, while Lavina shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Rajesh continued, holding up the folder. "I have proof, bank statements, text messages, witness testimonies, all showing how Priya and Lavina conspired to take that money. Priya may have been manipulated, but she still made the choice to betray me." At this, Priya looked up, her voice trembling. "Rajesh, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I could fix it, I swear." "You thought?" Rajesh cut her off, his voice sharp with anger. "You thought you could gamble with everything we built together? For what? to help someone who's been using you her entire life? The family murmured among themselves, their shock and disbelief palpable. Priya's aunt spoke up, her voice filled with anger. "Lavina, is this true? Did you take their money?" "You've spoken to blanks." Lavina, defiant to the last, rolled her eyes. "I didn't force her to do anything. Priya made her own choices, and besides, it's just money. They can earn it back." Rajesh's lawyer, who had accompanied him to the gathering, finally stepped forward. "Actually, Lavina, it's not just money. This is theft, plain and simple. And both you and Priya will be held accountable in court." So the room erupted in chaos. Lavina's smug demeanor shattered as the reality of the situation dawned on her. Priya broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Rajesh, though shaken, stood firm, refusing to let their tears sway him. "This isn't just about the money," he said, his voice steady despite the emotions roiling inside him. "It's about the betrayal. I trusted you, Priya. I loved you, and you destroyed that trust." The confrontation left the family divided. Some sympathized with Rajesh, offering their support and condemning Priya and Lavina's actions. Others, especially Lavina's enablers, tried to downplay the situation, claiming it was a family matter that didn't need to go to court. But Rajesh was resolute. The lawsuit proceeded, and while it would take months for the case to conclude, the confrontation had given him a sense of closure. He had exposed the truth, ensuring that Priya and Lavina could no longer hide behind their lies. Though the road ahead was still uncertain, Rajesh felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. The dream of his house may have been stolen, but he now had a new goal, rebuilding his life, this time on a foundation of truth and self-respect. As the legal proceedings progressed, a new layer of the story began to unravel, a twist that would leave Rajesh questioning everything he thought he knew. Priya, through her lawyer, requested to speak directly to Rajesh in a mediated setting. Despite his anger, Rajesh agreed, desperate to hear her side of the story. What she revealed would change everything. Sitting across the table from him, Priya looked like a shadow of her former self, her eyes hollow, her voice shaky. But what came out of her mouth was more shocking than Rajesh could have anticipated. "I didn't steal the money to betray you," she began, barely able to meet his eyes. "I did it because I had no choice." Rajesh felt his anger flare. "No choice? You had no choice but to empty your account and run away without a word." "It was Lavina," Priya admitted, her voice cracking. "She got herself into something dangerous, something I couldn't let her face alone. She borrowed money from the wrong people, and when she couldn't pay it back, they came after her. They threatened to hurt her and me if I didn't help." Rajesh was skeptical. "And you believed her? Lavina has been lying and manipulating you for years. What makes this time any different?" "She showed me proof," Priya said, pulling out her phone and scrolling through her messages. She handed it to Rajesh, who reluctantly took it. On the screen were a series of chilling texts from an unknown number. "We know where you live. Pay up or we'll make an example out of her. You have 1 week. They followed me home one night," Priya continued, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to drag you into it. I thought if I gave them the money, they'd leave us alone." "And I get just the two of us," Rajesh said, closing his eyes for a second time. Rajesh was struck, but he held back, his jaw clenched and his body racing forward. Priyash looked up. "It's gone cold, Priya, completely." "Why didn't you come to me? We could have gone to the police." "I was scared," Priya admitted, "and Lavina begged me not to. She said she'd fix it, that it was all temporary. But I was wrong to trust her. She didn't use the money to pay them back. She used it for herself." The revelation hit Rajesh like a tidal wave. Priya hadn't been entirely complicit. She had been manipulated and coerced, but her actions still felt like a betrayal. She had prioritized her sister over their marriage, and in doing so, she had destroyed the trust between them. As the truth came to light, Rajesh found himself at a crossroads. Priya's explanation, while heartbreaking, didn't erase the damage she had done. Lavina's selfishness and manipulation had torn apart not just Priya's life, but his own as well. And while he could see that Priya had acted out of fear and desperation, he couldn't ignore the choices she had made. When the case finally went to court, Lavina bore the brunt of the consequences. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she was ordered to pay restitution to Rajesh. Priya, though not entirely blameless, received a lighter penalty due to the mitigating circumstances. She avoided jail time, but was required to attend financial counseling and complete community service. After the trial, Priya reached out to Rajesh one last time. She begged for forgiveness, expressing genuine remorse for her actions. "I know I don't deserve another chance," she said, her voice trembling, "but I want to make things right. I'll do whatever it takes." Rajesh looked at her, his emotions a swirling mix of sadness, anger, and the faintest glimmer of compassion. "I believe you're sorry," he said after a long pause. "But forgiveness doesn't mean things can go back to the way they were. Trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. And I don't think I can rebuild it with you." Priya nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand." With that, Rajesh made the decision to cut ties completely. He filed for divorce, not out of spite, but because he knew he needed to move on. Staying in the marriage would mean living with the constant shadow of betrayal, and he deserved better than that. In the months that followed, Rajesh began rebuilding his life. He moved out of the apartment that held so many painful memories and rented a small, cozy flat on the other side of the city. Though his savings were gone, he started fresh, picking up freelance work to supplement his income and slowly working toward his dream of home ownership once again. The experience had changed him. It had taught him the importance of boundaries, of recognizing red flags, and of standing up for himself even in the face of love. Most importantly, it had shown him the strength he didn't know he had, the strength to walk away from a relationship that no longer served him. One evening, as he sat on the balcony of his new apartment, watching the sunset, Rajesh allowed himself a moment of reflection. Despite the pain he had endured, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. He realized that life, much like the setting sun, had a way of starting fresh with each new day. "Why don't you just stay here?" Rajesh said to him once. Rajesh didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. He had survived the storm, and now he was ready to embrace the calm. What would you do if someone you trusted, someone you loved, betrayed you in the most unimaginable way? Could you find it in your heart to forgive them? Or would the pain be too much to bear? Rajesh made his choice. He chose himself, his peace, and his future. But forgiveness isn't the same for everyone. Do you think Priya deserved a second chance, given her situation? Or was Rajesh right to let go and start over? We all face moments when trust is broken, when the people we love reveal sides of themselves we never expected. But the question remains, how do we move forward? With forgiveness, with anger, or by rebuilding piece by piece? What would you do in Rajesh's place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you forgive Priya? Or would you start fresh like Rajesh did? Your story matters. Let us know in the comments what you think Rajesh should have done. Or if you've ever experienced a betrayal like this, tell us how you handled it. Your insight could help someone else facing a similar challenge. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with someone who might find it meaningful. And if you enjoy stories like this, stories of betrayal, resilience, and the power of moving on, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We bring you real-life stories that inspire, challenge, and connect us all. Life isn't about avoiding pain, it's about learning to rise above it. Rajesh's story reminds us that even in the face of betrayal, we have the power to reclaim our lives and create something new. Thank you for watching, and remember, every ending is a new beginning.